It's really important that we thank Jib, who have been a long-term supporter of the Fast Forward program. They've been completely fantastic. I think this is year 17 of their run with Fast Forward. Completely fantastic. We couldn't do huge chunks of what we do at the school and for the profession. Yeah, so we've got Richard here from Jib. Yeah, so really full of gratitude for Jib. So what I'm going to do is show you a little video that we will all enjoy together.
Our new Tauranga facility is now operational, manufacturing and distributing Jib plasterboard across the nation, the size of 8 rugby fields, with 50% more capacity than the Auckland plant, and the ability for further expansion. Designed with our commitment to safety, quality, sustainability, and innovation. We will always be on board with you.
So thank you again to Jib. Something we did last year and we're doing again this year is organise this lecture in collaboration with Architecture and Women, a fantastic organisation. We're really pleased for the school to be able to partner with them. And so I'm going to hand over to Lynda Simmons from Architecture and Women.
Kia ora koutou. Can you guys hear me? Yep, might have to install, hopefully. So kia ora. I'm Sharina and I'm representing A+W, Architecture and Women, to introduce tonight's speakers. So I've just recently completed my 2-year term as co-chair of A+W, and now I've moved into the role of Research and Policy Lead. And I'm also a past alumna of Auckland University and a practitioner, so an architectural practitioner and lecturer at AUT across the road. So I'd just quickly like to briefly acknowledge the kaupapa of Architecture and Women New Zealand. It's a national, not-for-profit organisation that works to increase the visibility of women in architecture and support a more inclusive profession for all through events, research, advocacy, mentoring and policy initiatives. A+W creates spaces for connection, recognition and change, ensuring their experiences, contributions and histories of women in architecture are visible and valued. So tonight is particularly special, and we bring together 3 wahine architects whose work demonstrates the many ways architecture contributes to our communities through practice, education, research and advocacy. So first, I'd like to introduce Eva Nash and Kate Rogan of Rogan Nash Architects, and I'll just do a little intro for these lovely women. So Kate and Eva founded Rogan Nash Architects in 2012, established their Grey Lynn practice, an interiors practice with a focus on creating thoughtful, considered homes. So it's architecture and interior, which is wonderful. So their work begins with understanding how people live, designing spaces that support everyday life and respond to the needs, aspirations and experiences of their occupants. So what is really distinctive about Rogan Nash is their integrated approach to architecture and interiors. They consider the whole experience of a home, from the overall architectural idea through to materials, details and the elements that shape how spaces are lived in over time. So both Eva and Kate are fellows of the Institute of Architects, so the New Zealand Institute of Architects, and have contributed to the wider profession through teaching, design critique, architectural award juries, including the World Architecture Festival and professional engagement. So I've also had the pleasure of working alongside these 2 lovely women as well through Architecture and Women. And so we're so excited for them to present their projects and talk a little bit about their kaupapa and what they do and their reach out into the wider community. So I'd like to introduce you to Eva and Kate.
Oh, it's great to see you all here tonight. Thank you so much for coming out. It's a pleasure to be able to have the chance to talk to you, and thank you so much to you, Sharina. Always lovely to see you. I'm Kate Rogan.
And I'm Eva Nash, and together we are Rogan Nash Architects.
And so Eva and I have a slightly different way of thinking about design. Our ideas on design is more actually about a philosophy. And for us, it's encapsulated in the idea of architecture for a lifetime of living.
We've been in business together for 14 years, and over that time we've designed new homes, holiday homes, heritage villa and bungalows, renovations and extensions, and over that time we've done almost 200 of those projects.
So it's a few. So as we go through that process of designing all those things and working together, we've come up with a few principles that are key to the way that we work, and also kind of a thematic, if you like, through all of our projects. And the first is that we like to be true to the client. So what we mean here is that the design is all about that client. It's all about listening to them, trying to provide a home which suits them. And so Eva and I like to talk a lot together. We like to have a lot of briefing with our clients, and we like to really consider what they want to have, because that's kind of the design problem that we're trying to solve.
And we also think about the small moments. It can be really easy to fall into the design trap of designing only for that amazing sunny day or that Christmas dinner with 20 people, and forget about the in-between moments, the small moments that actually make up every day, whether it be enjoying a coffee or finding a nice spot to read. It's those in-between moments that we think is important to design for, so that you can really enjoy your home all the time.
So we have another idea which sounds a bit strange. We call it Together Alone, but it's actually all about sharing a space. And it's the idea, as opposed to flatting, where you might all hide off in your rooms and you'd be watching devices, and it's all great and everything, but it'd be much better if we were all able to be in one area and to share it, and to still feel like we had our own experience, but we were still able to be together in a space.
And of course we bring sustainability principles to every project. That's a core principle, and we think it's really fundamental to consider at the very start of the project, whether that might be the siting, the orientation of the house and the windows, natural ventilation, or if you're doing renovations, considering what you can reuse and adapt so that you can reduce landfill. And
another one is the +1 space. You can sort of see that we do have a little bit of fun with the way we think about things. But for us, the +1 is when, if you had everything perfect in the house, what's one more thing that you could have which would make it even better? And so it can be something really small. It can be a room which is like a flexi space, so it can work in multiple ways. So it might be at one time it's the living space, but it could also have a fold-out bed. So it's a simple idea like that, just having one area which can add on to the main part of the house.
So we've got two projects to show to you tonight to talk about our design principles. The first one is Open and Shut, which was a recent winner of a housing award at the New Zealand Institute of Architects Auckland Architecture Awards. Open and Shut is a home on Waiheke Island. Oh, I've gone the wrong way.
No, it's all right. So it's a new house on Waiheke Island. This is an interesting one in that we've got more than one house that we've done for this client, actually. We did another house for them in town, which also won an award. They were very pleased about that, and so happy to do it again. But their house in town is actually a villa, a renovated villa, and so they wanted to have a holiday home on Waiheke, and originally I think they thought we'll just go there, as a holiday home, but actually as it turned out, they're sort of there 50-50. And it's a couple, and they have children, but the children don't live with them all the time.
So just looking at the plan, it's a two-storey home built into the side of a sloping section. Downstairs is the garage, and also it's a flexi space as well, because it's also designed as a home gym. It's got the laundry, storage, and then you come upstairs. Because this is a holiday home, we wanted to deformalise the entry and have it more really relaxed and informal. So there's no set front door, Instead, we wanted visitors and the owners to just meander up the path to the covered outdoor deck and then enter the house that way, which you can see is the central part of the barbell-shaped plan with the central covered deck. And then we've got a dining, kitchen, living area, which has lots of multi-purposes. So there's the built-in seating, which is at the living area, but it's also sized enough so that you can sleep extra guests on the day beds when you've got an overflow of people there. There's little front deck for the morning coffee, and then the bedrooms down the other end of the home, which has what's actually 2.5 bedrooms, because one of them functions as an office.
Yeah, so it's a somewhat modest house in some ways.
Yeah.
And so coming back to one of those original ideas, we're thinking about it being true to the client. So like I was saying before, part of it is that it's a juxtaposition to their house, which is a villa in town. And so this house wanted to be they wanted it to feel really robust. They wanted it to feel quite masculine in terms of the aesthetic. And because it's coastal, they wanted to make sure that it could deal with the elements and things like that.
So when you're thinking about small moments for a holiday home, it can actually take on a slightly different meaning, because holiday homes, the idea is to slow down the pace of life. So we wanted to naturally create some spaces and some areas that would slow things down. So the natural place to sit and enjoy the morning sunshine with a coffee on the daybed, or the feature in the stairwell, which makes you want to pause and not rush through the house, but instead slow down and enjoy the moment. So that was the idea between creating some smaller moments within the space for those in-between times.
Yeah, and similar to that, I think, is coming back to this idea of together alone. So I'm going to see if I can explain this to you nicely. But if you can imagine in this image here, you could have a scenario where someone is sitting having a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and someone else is cooking at the same time. So there can be a direct relationship with those people where they're hanging out together, or there can be the other one, where someone's just making their breakfast and someone else has just woken up, still half asleep, but they're sitting at the bar and are just able to quietly do their thing. And then same with the outside area. So you see in the background there's also a small little deck. So there can be a direct relationship between those spaces. You can imagine a bigger event when the entire space is used really well, but we also like to imagine it broken down into smaller groups. Or a scenario where it could just be one person there. How would that feel? How would it feel when it's just two people? So it's thinking about all of those and trying to make each of those arrangements feel cosy and snug in the alone portion, but still feeling together. So it's just thinking about those different scenarios, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, of course, sustainability in this particular project was a big priority. We designed the house to be Homestar 7. It's got a number of different ways that we've done sustainability principles throughout the house, including the climate-modifying internal-external garden, which you can see here in the heart of the plan. You open the doors and to the garden, and instantly the air quality changes. It reduces the pressure and it lightens lowers the temperature. So not only that, we've got the sliding screens on the exterior of the building to control the climate in terms of sun shading, and also there's the privacy elements. We also do have water collection, we've got solar panels, we've got low energy appliances, so there's actually a lot of features here. But we do like them to be subtle and well designed.
Yeah, you don't even know.
No.
And so in this house, there's a few of these +1 spaces. Eva mentioned before in the garage, we set it up with garage carpet, and they had a full gym in that area as well. So in a way, the garage is having multi-purpose or multi-use, or being hardworking, if you like. And then we've also got in the covered dining area you were seeing before, that has that element of +1, and that it's an outdoor area, so it can be a completely separate room. where you can have a separate purpose, if you like. And then just simple things. So in the main bedroom, having the introduction of the bunk beds, so the room can kind of work in different scenarios for not just having a couple staying. You can also have it as sort of like a family setup as well.
The guest room.
Sorry, in the guest room, yeah.
And then, so the house has these sliding screens on the northwestern facade, which means that we can control the light, the wind, and the privacy from the neighbours by closing or opening them. It's along the whole facade, so it actually gives you the flexibility into the living spaces, the covered deck, which you can also see here, and then also the bedroom beyond as well. And they are part of our, one of the things that we've done in the office is we've explored this idea of dots and dashes, and the screens are part of that exploration of the dots and dashes idea, which was a motif we introduced a few projects ago when we were playing around with Morse code, and this is just a lovely little continuation of that idea.
The house is known as open and shut because it's got a number of elements, obviously, that open and shut. Some are pretty obvious, the screens, which open and shut, and also this relationship back to the internal garden, where, as Eva was talking about it before, we think of it strangely as an internal and external garden at the same time, because the rooms, the internal space is open directly onto it, and there's a gate where it opens onto the outside. So you're constantly playing with that shutting down of the house and the layering up of spaces.
And so the kitchen is an integral part of the living space, as you can see here. We've used birch plywood both on the ceiling and the cabinetry and the built-in seats, and we've thought about the arrangement of the kitchen with how people might come and go in a really relaxed, sort of casual way, sitting around the bar, so the island bench, so that it can accommodate lots of people or a smaller group. And then how that would also interact with the neighbours behind in terms of giving privacy to the windows and the screening on the outside as well. But this space just feels like a really wonderful, warm, relaxing space, which was really important to the clients because they didn't want it to feel, precious or stuffy, but instead they wanted it to feel like you could just be relaxed and on holiday.
And so coming back to these screens on the outside, you can sort of see that they have obviously the sustainability ideas that we were talking about before, but it helps us to play with that privacy and also the play of it being a holiday home. So things can be opened up and feel very casual, but you can also close it down. In this case, the screens actually slide in front of that main bedroom, and then on the other side you can actually see that we've closed down the outdoor dining area. So you're constantly playing between one and the other.
And so then from the inside of that bedroom, it's a really beautiful dappled light, like sunlight through lace that falls across the floor and into the room. So you could have an afternoon nap and just keep all the doors open, but shut the screens down. Or the same, or in the evening when it's really hot, you could do the same thing. We've also got a fan in that room to help with the circulation of the airflow. And then just a lovely mix of materials just to make it calming, but also have that ultimate flexibility on how you want to use the space.
When Eva and I are designing, which Serena mentioned before, we don't just think about architecture as being the shell. We think about it as being, if you like, everything which is attached to the building. So when we're designing the entire shell, but also all of those surfaces on the inside. And then often it's carrying through to, obviously the hard fit out items, so the cabinetry, the built-in seating, things like fireplaces. We would choose feature lighting for the spaces. Everything all comes into it. But one of the most successful parts, I guess, about this area is you can really sort of feel this moment of the open and shut, where we have a corner slider which opens back, which you can see there as effectively we're standing in the outdoor dining area. So we've got you can see that connection between the internal and the external, which was one of the requests from the client, was to have which isn't a small moment, is a big moment, where they have they wanted to have an area where you could have a very long dining table going in one portion, but they didn't want to have a crazily huge house, if you know what I mean. So we set up a scenario where you can have a dining table on the inside of the house, and then it continues to the same table, which goes into the internal garden, and you have into the internal dining area where we're standing, and all those doors open up and it becomes a completely different space again.
Exactly. And then the next project that we wanted to show you tonight is called Pop-Up Book. It's actually in the current issue of Homestyle magazine, so we wanted to show you another project that was current and recent.
And so this house is a renovation. It's a renovation to a bungalow in Westmere, and this is for a young family. It's a couple, and they've got young children. And he's actually Irish and she's a New Zealander, and so they've spent some time living away and have come back to New Zealand and been here for a while. And so part of what they wanted from the house is they obviously fell in love with this beautiful bungalow. But when you're at the street, it had some beautiful, what a real estate agent would call beautiful bones. Only bones, maybe not a lot of going out clothes, but anyway, it had a beautiful look on the outside. And then as you went further and further, it was like the hope that the guests would be left further back because it kind of got a little bit more muddled. And so part of it was bringing that rear part of the house up to the same level, that same feeling that they felt at the front of the house.
So just with regard to the plan, we tried to reuse as many spaces as we could just by reorganising the existing house. Initially, when we first got there was the classic 90s move of putting the bathroom in the hallway with no external windows, which is something that we see in a few homes that we visit. And obviously they had to go. So we wanted to re-establish the hallway and its character features and really pull you through the home when you first got there, because it used to sort of cut abruptly and had no connection to the back lawn area. So we've introduced a sort of more regular plan at the front with the bedrooms, and then you step down some split levels into the kitchen and dining, scullery, laundry, and then the lounge, the living area, which then connects via a deck to the swimming pool. And you can see, as in the previous image, the lovely stairs that cascade down to the lawn.
And so thinking again of that design principle being true to the client, I mean, it seems so obvious, doesn't it, that you would want to listen to the client, but we definitely do. And so part of it actually, there was a little bit of heritage which came through from these sort of Irish design in terms of fed through our client, if you like, where it was to do with bringing colour in and not just wanting everything to be white, but having a little playfulness with the design. The clients are also quite eclectic, so they had I guess they wanted to have a whole lot of their different things feel at home in the design, and for it not to feel too serious, but at the same time not too fussy.
So small moments were something that was really important in the design for a family home with young children, because if you design for the perfect day, it's probably never going to come. So instead, we wanted to bring joy to those everyday rituals. And we did so with a colour palette that kind of pops in different spaces and some continuation of the lovely brass fittings throughout. A great space to do this idea is in the laundry, where we can add a bit of colour with the porcelain blush that we've got going through. And then, when you're bathing the kids, just having a bit of fun with that space and just making it an enjoyable moment. Just those everyday rituals, we wanted to think about playing those scenarios through.
And I think part of the trick here as well is it seems so simple to be like, oh, we'll just put a bit of colour in. But actually, when you're trying to map all of those things together and make it go together, but still feel deliberately different colours, if you like. And I think you see that idea coming through into this space, thinking about our Together Alone idea again. And so when we're trying to share these spaces, but in the back of your mind you're still wanting to do colour and make it relaxed and make people want to share the space and have passion and things like that. But you can imagine that you could quite easily have a group of people in this room on the sofa and also on the window seat there. But you can also see a situation where it could just be the opposite, where someone is on the sofa reading, I don't know, having a cup of coffee, someone's on the window seat reading their book, and there's an outdoor area directly there, so they could, those areas can share from each other, but also someone could just be having their lunch outside and someone could be in the swimming pool. So it's always thinking at the same time, how can all those different scenarios try and work together, but still work as one big space too.
And so given it was a renovation, sustainability is part of the adaptive reuse that we had considered of the building, and just to extend the life of the existing building. And we also thought that it had these really beautiful character features which would be a shame to get rid of. So instead we worked hard to restore them and to actually bring them back to life, to make sure that we held on to those important moments so that they didn't end up being thrown out, but instead that we brought them back to their glory. So that was all part of our strategy here on this house.
The +1 space here is really simple. I mean, the whole outdoor area, there's this wonderful swimming pool. We were really careful to make it feel as though it was really part of the wider landscape. We're borrowing a lot of views from the surrounding properties here. But yeah, you can see how that works for the family there.
And so then just thinking about these interior spaces, the kitchen here on the left with its pistachio greens, which was a nostalgic nod to the client's background and heritage that they had described to us. And then the site is actually a south-facing backyard, which is often a big problem with some houses in Auckland because they feel so dark and disconnected. And so creating a space that would then still bring in the sunlight and turn what was previously a really dark, internally focused home back to the garden and to the park views beyond.
And so you start to see, I guess, why we called it the pop-up book, because we felt like when we first looked at it, it was like that storybook from the front, the chocolate box house, if you like, and it had all this promise of a beautiful story. And then as the rooms unfold, it's like these beautiful, colourful scenes of each page coming to life as you come down the hall. And then when you come to the back of the house, it felt to us that it could be like a closed book, with the pages layering up, which is where this batten idea came from. Obviously, it's a direct reference to the book at the front, the house at the front. And then thinking about the black joinery, like the letters on the page, the text, the font, if you like, inside that book. But to us, yeah, it was a beautiful unfolding moment.
So that's it from us. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to follow us.
Thank you so much, Eva and Kate. That was a wonderful, beautiful project, so really inspirational there. So our final speaker tonight is Lynda Simmons of Lynda Simmons Architect. Lynda is an architect, educator, researcher and advocate whose career reflects many dimensions of our profession. Through her studio and through her academic work, Lynda brings together architectural practice, teaching, research and advocacy. Her work explores design processes, drawing, architectural histories and the social and cultural contexts that shape our profession. Lynda is someone I've known for many years, and she's been a generous mentor and supporter and advocate throughout my own architectural journey. Beyond her own practice and teaching, Lynda has made a significant contribution to architecture in Aotearoa. She was actually part of the founding group of Architecture Women New Zealand, helping establish the organisation's early foundations around visibility, research and advocacy. Her research has focused on uncovering the invisible histories within New Zealand architecture, bringing attention to stories, practices and contributions that have often been overlooked. Lynda is also a Fellow of the New Zealand Institute of Architects and was recognised with the President's Award in 2014 for her advocacy work. So I'd like to introduce Lynda.
Thank you so much, Sharina, and my friends at Architecture and Women. And thank you, Andrew, for putting all this together all the time. So I know the work that goes on behind the scenes. And thank you, Jib, for constantly being there. It's fantastic. And Kate and Eva, thank you. And I'm just going to say, if you've got questions for Kate and Eva, sorry, you've got to park them now. And we'll do them at the end, and I will just change gear. I'm going to look at one aspect of my architectural life tonight, and that is my continual pursuit of shadow in architecture as a deliberate, comforting and aesthetically pleasing approach to design instead of something to be avoided or seen as negative. So, for example, you know, cold and dark. People think of shadow and it's cold and dark because we just heard that, right? And that's true. But shadow can be warm and dry as well. And instead, my version is the warm and dry version, and more related to the well-worn ideas of refuge and prospect, made famous in the 70s, but quite often always been there. I'm also going to read tonight because Andrew gave us 25 minutes, and I just thought, crikey, I will just talk for an hour if I talk to my slides, so I'm going to kind of keep myself in check with my thing. So apologies for the reading, but it's better than the runaway version. The invitation to speak tonight is on the back of the recent NZIA awards, as you just heard with Kate and Eva's award, and I know Andrew got a couple as well, and where I won an award with Sayes Jackson Architects for this project, the Onutangi Pavilions in Waiheke Island. This is an addition to an existing home set in a lush green property for the Williams family. It's on Seaview Road as you're heading down towards Onutangi, but it does not have sea views. Instead, it is bathed in light and planting. And it's quite inward looking. There are two new pavilions which have been set in relation to the existing home designed by Melling Architects in 2013 to create a grass-filled green courtyard clearing centred on an existing golden totara. The small black pavilions are designed to feel as if you're living in a veranda, with the edge condition therefore highly controlled and defined, and the result is a threshold of contained shadow surrounding a courtyard of contained light. But before I talk about the project, I'm going to first provide a bit of context about who I am and how I have structured my own architectural life across 4 decades. I've created what is often called an expanded practice, staying active across practice, education and advocacy. As an architect, I've run my own practice since 1997, and here is a screenshot of my website. That's for the young people who don't use websites anymore. Core interests that have emerged, as you can see there in the list, basically revolve around contained shadow, obviously, but drawing and making processes, their implication on design, drawing on buildings, and practice management. The deliberate shaping of a slow and small practice is what I've focused on, and I describe myself as the slowest architect in Aotearoa, and this is deliberate and conscious. It's not an apology. As an educator, I have been working here at this university for nearly 20 years now, and before that I taught studio and drawing at Unitec, starting with their founding intake year in 1995. My research interests and writing, again, including the same themes: drawing theory, design and drawing processes again, histories, and I'm particularly interested in the invisible histories, the minor histories, not the major histories, and again professional practice, which I taught for 7 years. I co-taught with Bill Mackay for 7 years here at the university. And you can find my published articles, chapters and opinion pieces on the website. As an advocate, as you just heard, thank you, Sharina, in 2011 I co-founded Architecture and Women New Zealand and was co-chair for 9 years. I stayed on until 2022 as research leader, archivist and policy leader roles, and this advocacy work was directly emerging from my interest in practice management, because I believe that our profession still operates under an outdated industrial age model. And together in the early years, we designed innovative, radical and positive projects to affect the profession. My thread of interest in invisible histories can be seen on the Architecture and Women website through projects such as the Timeline exhibition, which has been installed over 7 times, and also the design of the database itself. My only current connection with Architecture and Women is through the running of the Tātui Treadwell Drawing Archive, which some of you may be aware of. If you're students and you're in your master's year, then a drawing is selected annually from the thesis work to be kept in the archive. I established this in 2017 in honour of the legacy of Sarah Treadwell and in her year of retirement, especially in regards to gender equity and drawing. And my advocacy work continues in my support for valuing part-time careers. And I cannot discuss my architectural life without acknowledging the work of parenting, which for many architects has a huge impact on their career, on how their careers are shaped. And one of my questions to you guys would be to describe to people how you've actually made a practice structure around parenting, because it's an innovative one and it's a nice example. These paintings are actually at the top are over 15 years old now, so the kids are, old. Adults. The kids are adults. So my working life looks different again. So the result of all this is that I've designed all of my work to be deliberately part-time, and not part-time as a temporary condition, which is how we always talk about it, but to have it as a valued long-term expanded practice by making part-time work permanent and so that we can work across many fields. And hence my deliberate shaping of a small, slow practice and the ethics associated with that. But the other result, and the one I want to focus on tonight, is that there are common threads connecting all aspects of my architectural life that you've seen in those lists already shown. And the one thread that I want to pick up now and talk through is my interest in contained shadow. So I won't talk about I've got a few projects to run through, mainly focusing on the recent one, but I won't talk about them in terms of materials so much and structure and planning and those things that we normally talk about. I will talk about it in relation to this idea of contained shadow. And so back to the project. My long-term obsession with what I call contained shadow was thankfully able to be expressed because the clients are who they are. Both of the clients, Tammy and Marty Williams, are cinematographers, and this means that their medium is light, and they work with darkness and light daily. And the outcome of that is that instead of in the briefing early meetings talking about function and the typical stuff, it went quite quickly to darkness and light as a briefing document. I will add here that I learnt very early not to talk to clients about shadow because it has those scary connotations of dampness and coldness. And I also don't believe that we should take our obsessions to every client all the time. And they don't need to know. You can leave things ticking along for yourself. You don't need to share it with every client. But it was lovely with these clients because they brought that to me. So here, as I said, the briefing discussions. So here, the contained shadow is held within the deep deck threshold and into the interior, under the deep eave, and heightened with the sharp roof edge detail. The material of the recycled timber to the deck edges contrast with the sharp roof edge. Now again, before continuing, I need to do some definitions. The term shadow needs definition. It has had many definitions over time, from Robert Casati through to Leonardo da Vinci, and what I've done is summarised shadow for myself in terms of these three terms, and it's the third one I will be referring to. But we can think of shadow as cast shadow. Obviously, that's two-dimensional. We need a light source, we need an object, and we need a two-dimensional surface for the shadow to be projected onto. But we can also talk about modulated shadow, which is softer, and it can vary between two-dimensional and three-dimensional. For example, the soft shadow that falls across a face or other curved surfaces and landscapes. And then we've got contained shadow. This is my own term and relates directly to how darkness can be held within a form, such as a niche or a recess, and it needs a definite edge. And in addition, it needs to be set against its contrast, which I call an illuminated plane. So the contained shadow doesn't exist if it doesn't have its opposite. So you need the bright light. Otherwise you get that dim dark horribleness. Now in this case, the illuminated plane is horizontal as a brightly lit open courtyard, but the illuminated plane can also be vertical. So for example, Aldo Rossi's Modena Cemetery, where you've got a vertical wall of bright light and those square dark niches set into the facade. I think of contained shadow as having mass or being matter, despite really only being a condition of intense dark space. So moving between contained shadow and contained light of the courtyard requires some very careful control at the threshold. So this image here is obviously the opposite of the one we were just looking at. We were looking into the darkness, and now we're in the darkness and looking out through that same corner. So we just need a lot of control at the threshold with depth, layering and material textures. This image is taken from the arrival position from the street at the existing parking platform you see in the front, which you descend from and enter the courtyard through the gap between the two new pavilions and towards the Golden Totara. The existing house can be seen behind the tree, and that too descends down the lush planted site. Here the Golden Totara marks the courtyard when looking from the street. This is the street facade. The main pavilion behaves as a street wall beside the open corner just seen in the previous slide. So it would have been coming in this way and across that corner. The plan shows this arrangement of the two new pavilions with an existing house. This is the existing house here to the left. Two new pavilions set around the courtyard, which acts as a room. And this makes the whole addition feel larger than its 70 square metres. And 70 square metres, that includes all the deck thresholds, so the interiors are pretty tiny. And the threshold deck, therefore, borrows from when you're in the internal, it borrows space from the courtyard and across the threshold. And this is one of my build small other obsessions. Build as small as we can and borrow space from other spaces, and that's done through this layering, and you've just seen some good examples with Kate and Eva as well on that. Both pavilions are fully black on the exterior and interior, except for the green bathroom, which mirrors the green courtyard and brings colour into the most interior courtyard corner of the building. Contained shadow requires high definition, as I said, of both the full threshold and its edge condition. The triangular roof forms are expressed in profile at the pavilion ends, and the postless deck threshold is achieved with a cantilevered truss system. Most importantly, the sharp eave edge detail ensures the contained shadow is precise. So again, the three conditions of designing with contained shadow is here, with contained shadow, it must have contained light as its opposite and in contrast, and it must have the threshold, which is where the focus of the design has to sit, because a bit of a dissolving threshold means the whole thing just turns to custard, really. The entire project relies on the section. The depth of the threshold is clear. The deck is 1.4 metres wide and the room's only 2.6, with the cladding envelope set well back from the... so the glass, this is where the weather line is. You can see the narrow, and then there's another screen layer there. So this here is the threshold I'm talking about, and it gets used on the interior as well as the exterior. The sharp edge detail has a recessed gutter in it to allow for that sharp edge, and again the gutter is sitting on the outside of the weather line. And the ventilated soffit also acts as a light box. The cantilevered truss system you can see there, and the street wall with the clerestory light. The heavy recycled timber edge, and the relationship to the ground and open space. And this is the drawing that was provided along with the Rhino BIM model to Sayes Jackson, Nick Sayes of Sayes Jackson Architects, and they took the project through to building consent documentation from here. And if I was following my thread of interest of practice structures, then I would talk more about that, but I'm going to go back and stick with the thread of shadow, contained shadow. Okay, this is their drawing, the sharp roof edge. This is from the building consent documentation, and again, it shows the recessed membrane, gutter, the aluminium, 3mm folded aluminium edge detail, and the ventilated soffit. And this is the weather line here. As mentioned, layering to the deep threshold is also important, and layering also happens with light, as well as the materials and textures. While there are no posts on in the deck itself, as I said before, the cantilevered structure, triangular truss structure, the screens add a layer to control light and privacy, and also airflow. With the sliding glass door layer fully open, the bedroom can borrow, this is the bedroom here, and it can borrow right through to the screens and feel like a larger room. The soffit drawing also defines the threshold. So it combines both contained shadow and contained light, also providing material texture in addition to ventilation for the internal structure. The holes in the deep eave soffit create spots of darkness through the day and spots of light at night, because it also behaves as a light box. The analogue and digital artworks for this drawing on buildings, were done by my daughter, an assistant on this project, Madalena Rafiti, and the rhino cutting files were done by Davis Wu. Madalena also handled the CNC routing and used these panels as part of her experimental installation work for her Masters in Spatial Design at AUT before they were packed up, shipped to the island and installed on the building. The effect of the soffit drawing is like looking out to a starry night from the bed, where this photo was taken by the client. Which brings us to the green bathroom. Green micro cement on the walls and floor, green tiles to the shower walls, green concrete basin, and set with recycled native timbers and screened natural light. This image is taken at the glass link between the new pavilions and the existing house. And yes, there's some cast shadows as well. Looking from the existing house towards the street, through the gap between pavilions A and B. So here's the existing house, there's the gap up towards the street. And this is taken by the client after a heavy rainfall. And this is the list of people involved in the project. Okay, so following the thread of contained shadow beyond practice and into education, what have I been doing here? In 2021, I co-taught Studio D5 with Tane Pāmatotau, and it was called Inside Out Reconsidering Courtyards, so obviously dealing with courtyards and thresholds, bringing that through to the students. You can see my interest in shadow with the Brett Graham and the Mataaho Maureen Lander pieces, where you've got contained shadow through material and layering, and you've got contained shadow sitting at the surface on Brett Graham's. In 2014, Studio AD1 also looked at thresholds, this time at the Auckland Museum, and that was co-taught with Elisa Petaheta. In 2012, I published an article in Interstices called Interior Darkness, Contained Shadow. Pretty straightforward what that was about. And that came out of the master's research thesis of 2011. This master's was called From Man Alone to Larrikin, the work of Lynda Simmons, and it was on, again, picking up on that invisible histories thread. He's a largely unpublished architect, and I was trying to fill that gap. But one of the chapters in this thesis dealt with the aesthetic preferences that may develop through childhood experiences and my love for the family home, designed by Neil in 1964. I analysed my childhood home through the lens of contained shadow and showed how his work has influenced mine. The house is designed like a cave with a strong, heavy walled back and a roof that folds open towards the bright northern light. Deep black eaves hold the shadow in the recesses. The house is orientated from the darkness towards the light. And here's a photo from the 1970s showing the light skimming across the brick-tiled floor. And back to practice. Just a couple of quick projects now to finish off. This is an art studio designed around a wild garden done between the years of 2012 and 15, so again quite similar to the timing of the studio in teaching and publication. And this one deals with holding contained shadow at the surface. Here the niches are smaller. They're small and carved into the surface. The textures of the materials and the surface condition are where the contained shadow sits. And here again I'm drawing on buildings, this time with a laser cut artwork. The artwork is derived from a John Poulet lithograph. I'm very lucky to be able to ask John for his permission to do this. He's a close friend of my partner, Albert Rafiti. And I'm happy to say that he was pleased with the outcome. And by the way, for those interested in John's work, he's having an opening at the Gal Langsford Gallery in Onehunga on Saturday at 2 p.m. This thread of interest, holding contained shadow at the ceilings or at surfaces, can be seen in early drawings as well. For example, this one in 1986. And another project, this time in Waihao Bay in the East Cape, a small dining room. Not done with drawing this time because of the remoteness of the site. We had to get ready-made. So we found some screens at Bunnings. And it's the same thing there, though, coming from the refuge of darkness and looking out into the bright light. And here the illuminated plane is the sea, the vast ocean that this house sits beside. Another project, we're going back now to 2004. I think the theme is pretty obvious by now. But we've got materials in both of these projects, we can see that light across the floor and the materials of concrete, but mainly black rubber as well, because it soaks up the light. So it's always about how the light comes across the materials. Also contain shadow at a furniture scale, and contain shadow between roof layers. The thread continues. Working as a graduate, here I am in 1990 trying to get shadow into the detailing of a building done by Lynda Simmons. I was working as a graduate and I worked for my father. And that's a project of his. And you can see the drawings that those things are coming from. And so back to education again. This time, as the undergraduate student, this brings us all the way back to a sub-thesis done here at the university in my final year. It's called Contain Shadow, the architecture of the box, which is a reminder that what you were thinking of as a student is going to be worked and reworked for the next decades to come. In my case, the pursuit of shadow has been an aesthetic pursuit, one that never leaves me, yet one that always changes as I do. And that's it. Thank you.